I'm Alynei, and today I'm going to be introducing you to World of Warcraft. For those of you new to the game, or new to gaming in general, World of Warcraft is an MMORPG, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. In this video we'll be going through the basic layout of the game, how to move, how to attack, how to interact with the game world, what the user interface looks like and what it can do, and afterwards, if you're still awake for that, I'll guide you through the character creation process and give you a basic background to the races and classes within the game. Later videos we'll be going through leveling, what happens when you hit certain levels, interaction with other players, how to use the chat function, what a guild is, and how to use the auction house. So I've just made a level 1 character, should be coming up here any second. There we go. This is a level 1 Blood Elf Hunter. That's her pet to the left, so let's see what they look like. To turn your camera, hold your left mouse button and drag in any direction. To turn your character, hold your right mouse button, drag in any direction. Let's go ahead and pick up a quest. Right-click the NPC in front of you. Click the exclamation mark, accept, and it'll show up in your quest tracker to the right. Before we complete the quest, we're going to walk through the user interface. So up on the right-hand side, above the quest tracker, there's a mini-map. The mini-map tracks various things, like your Dragonhawk to the left, and it'll show where any item you target is in relation to your character. When you start the game, it has a few default options turned on, but if you look at the magnifying glass to the left, you can choose which items your minimap will track. Like, for example, I usually turn on the mailbox. That's it over there, by the way. And if you have any mail waiting for you, it'll show up on the right side of the minimap. The plus and minus is a zoom, as you'd expect. And if you click the in-game clock, you get an alarm and a stopwatch that counts from seconds. The header shows where you are in the zone, and the little 7 over here is actually an in-game calendar that contains various seasonal and group events. If you click the header, or press M, you can also see the world map. I'm going to press M. So you'll see that most of the zone is blank. That's because you haven't explored it yet. If you have quest tracking turned on, you can see your quests and the area where they're supposed to be completed. Turn it off and you get a bigger zone map. Right-click to zoom out, then you see the whole continent. Right-click again, you see the whole world. Right-click again, and you see all of the game worlds. And of course left-click to zoom in. Your combat skills are on the bottom. Just hover over them to see what they do, and either click or press the assign button to perform an action. Now let's get on to that quest. The quest tracker says to kill 6 mana worms. To turn around, find them. To run, press the W button, the forward arrow key on your keyboard, or both mouse buttons at once. You'll notice that all the mobs you want to kill for quests have their names on top of themselves. Now if you press V on your keyboard, it'll turn on enemy health bars. Health bars only show for enemies that are in range, so you can see which ones are close enough to shoot at. Now I'm going to press my 1 button to shoot, and it'll send my pet right in, so I can kill the creature. To loot it, you right-click, and then you can click the item. But I don't like clicking everything I loot, so if you press Escape, it'll take you to a game menu. Go to Interface, Controls, and check in Auto Loot. See? Now it picks everything up automatically. Keep killing creatures, and once you have 6, the quest text will change, and you can run back and hand in the quest. Now if you look at your mini-map when you're close enough, you'll see that you have a big question mark where the NPC is. Just run up and right-click the NPC, and you can hand in your quest. On the bottom are your quest rewards. The red items indicate items you cannot wear. And complete. And look at that, level up. Awesome. You can see your XP bar at the bottom, above where your skills are. And when it's full, you level up. Top left corner is your character portrait. It's got a health bar on top, and then it's got your resource bar underneath. Right-clicking brings you a set of options, the first of which is Set Focus. What it does is it gives you an extra character window that'll stay even if you target something else. So let's say this target on me is a shady character. If I set focus on him, I can keep an eye on him all the time as long as he's in range. You can also put a marker on any target you like. For example, if you're playing with someone and you want them to kill a certain target first. Unlock Frame lets you move the portrait. And Clear Focus removes your focus target window. This function is only available on normal and RP servers. It lets you toggle on and off your PvP. And what that means is that a target from the opposing faction can kill you at any given time. I don't want to get killed, so let's turn it off. And if you look in the top left corner, you'll see a little 5-minute timer, and that's how long it takes to actually turn off. So I'm gnome bait for the next 5 minutes, pretty much. Otherwise, the options are the same as the focus target frame we just looked at, apart from the Reset All Instances button. For now, that button's useless, so we'll talk about it later. On the bottom right is your bag. The number on it shows how many free bag spaces you have left. You can see the items we picked up earlier while questing. On to the mini menu. The red question mark is the help button. If you click it, you can see a number of frequently asked questions, and you can request help if there's an issue you can't solve yourself. Next to that is the game menu that I showed you earlier. Honestly, I usually forget it's there and just click the hot button. Next to that is the raid tab where you can see your group. There's a chat tab that shows the chat channels you're in, a search function to find players you're looking for, and the social tab. The dungeon journal. The guild finder will help you find a guild, and more on what a guild is later, but it's a bit like an in-game interest group of some sort. Next to that is the quest log, and it's empty right now, but let's pick up a new quest, and it'll show up. You can toggle quest tracking, and that determines whether it shows up in the tracker to the right or not. You can also abandon quests that you don't want anymore. The Spellbook and Abilities tab shows you the skills you currently have. Just hover over them to see what they do. The tabs to the right show you combat skills and what level you can get the ones you don't have. There are tabs on the bottom to show your professions and your pets, and the pet tab shows the skills your pet has currently. The swirly borders indicate skills that are automatically used whenever the cooldown is up. The character pane shows your gear. It has a little 3D model that you can rotate. If you click the arrow, you can see the attributes your character currently has. Just hover over them to see what they do. Different classes use different attributes. As a hunter, for example, I would worry more about my ranged attack power than how much spirit I have. Titles. On the right is the Equipment Manager. This is a relatively new tool that lets you swap between gear sets. So, for example, if I put on the belt we got for the quest earlier, then I make a set, name it, make another set, name it, and if I click the different buttons now, I can actually take on and off my belt. On the bottom tab, you can see your pet. You can see its attributes to the right, same as yours, experience bar, and what it likes to eat. And the last tab is the Reputation tab. This shows your standing with different groups, and the higher your standing with a certain group, the more rewards you'll get from them. For example, I might get lower repair costs, or I'll be able to buy a certain piece of equipment. And the very last thing to go through is the chat box. The chat box is separated into tabs, and if you click the combat log tab, you'll see the attacks you've just made, while the general chat tab is just used for talking to other people. Click the icon on the top, and you can see your friends list, same as the raid browser button. And that completes the user interface walkthrough. Congrats, you've just completed a quest, leveled up, and pushed every button in-game. Let's cheer! Now I'm going to log out, go through the character creation process, and give you a short overview of the races and classes in-game. So here's the character list. This is the one we just played, and this is a bouncy night elf. If you click the arrow buttons, you can change the order of your list. To the bottom left is your add-ons folder. Add-ons are small programs that you can run in the game to change certain things. For example, to keep track of how many quests you've done, or to change the look of your user interface. So, let me tell you about the races in Azeroth. Okay, so there are two factions in the game, the Alliance and the Horde. First up are humans. The humans of Stormwind have endured everything from orc raids to troll invasions ever since the first Warcraft game in '94. They're allied with the dwarves of Ironforge, a moderately tall people, with a great love for beer, food, and fighting. There are the nature-loving night elves of Darnassus, who live in a great tree, the tiny but feisty gnomes of Nomargan, who make up for their small size by inventing more or less explosive devices on a regular basis. The Draenei of the Exodar. These guys were introduced along with the Blood Elves in the first expansion, the Burning Crusade, and they came to Azeroth on a great spaceship. And finally the Worgen, who are actually humans, and have a human form in-game, afflicted by a wolf curse. On the Horde side, we have the Orcs, classic enemy of humanity ever since the first game. They, like the Draenei, actually come from another planet from the beginning and invaded through a dark portal in the Blasted Lands. The Undead, like the Worgen, actually appear in-game as cursed humans. They were raised to undeath by the Scourge and made to serve in their army. In the storyline to Warcraft 3, the leader of the Scourge loses control of the undead that we play in-game. The Tauren of Thunderbluff were introduced in Warcraft 3 as well. They share some things with the Night Elves, like the worshipping of nature and keeping up the balance of the world. But they banded together with the Horde in exchange for their help. The Darkspear Trolls are also longtime friends of the Horde. There are a lot of troll factions in the game that are unfriendly players. Most of them use dark magic and voodoo to give themselves power, so in order to avoid that, the Darkspear Trolls went into exile, joined up with the Horde, and crossed the sea. And they've been more or less fast friends ever since. The Blood Elves were also introduced in the Burning Crusade along with the Draenei, and people who have played the earlier games in the Warcraft series might notice that the Elves were originally allied with the humans. Things happened. The Sunwill, their source of magic, exploded, and to fuel their addiction to magic, they've had to gather energy from some less reputable sources. Last but not least, maybe shortest though, are the Goblins. Goblins overall are a pretty ruthless breed. They gather themselves into cartels run by a trade prince. Overall, they value wealth above pretty much anything else. The goblins you play as included, you can tell from some of the in-game jokes they make. And much like the gnomes of the Alliance, they tend to make up for their size by inventing more or less explosive augmentations. On to the classes, finally. Okay, first, the warrior. Most RPGs have some kind of a warrior class. It's a big plate-wearing dude with a sword in his hand. Warriors in World of Warcraft can serve as tanks, And as a tank, your job is to get beat up. You make the monster beat you, so it won't attack any of the more squishy members of your group. Warriors can also serve as melee damage dealers, but you can't do both at the same time. The resource a warrior uses in combat is called Rage. It starts at 0 and then builds up as you deal and receive damage. Next up is the Paladin. This is another plate-wearing class, but these guys use mana as the resource. A Paladin can fill 3 roles in a group. They can tank and DPS much like a warrior does, but they can also use their mana and their holy energies to heal. But keep in mind you can't do all 3 at the same time. Then we have the Hunter. A Hunter is a ranged damage-dealing class that attacks with a ranged weapon and a pet, just like I showed you in the introduction earlier. The resource a Hunter and its pet uses is called Focus. It starts at 100, then the abilities you use in combat either use up or restore your focus. This is a Rogue. This is a melee DPS class, and they wear leather armor, 2 weapons, and they specialize in backstabbing. See what I mean? The resource a rogue uses is called Energy. Like Focus, it starts at 100 and is used up by your abilities. Rogues also use combo points for their finishing moves. Priests. If you played any RPG at all before, you've probably seen some sort of priest, cleric, holy man class. And the priests in World of Warcraft aren't really all that different. Priests wear cloth, which means they don't have all that much armor. They're pretty squishy. They're the only class with 2 healing trees, but they can also be used as damage dealers. As damage dealers, they go into shadow form, which means they can't cast healing spells, but their armor and their damage is increased. Priests, like any other healing class, use mana as their resource. Next up are Druids, and just let me swap race here. Druids are shapeshifters, and as such, some people consider them the ultimate hybrid class. All Druids can use a bear and a cat form, as well as a travel form, and at higher levels also turn into a stormcrow to fly. Depending on the specialization you pick, you can also turn into a moonkin, feathers and all, or a tree of life, which is the healing spec. Almost forgot, Druids also have an aquatic form, which looks a bit like a sea lion with a big smile. From nature worshippers to demon lovers. Next up is the Warlock, which is another ranged DPS class. Warlocks wear cloth, just like priests, and they use mana as their resource. But they also attack with summoned demons, or pets, just like hunters. They're also able to temporarily enslave wild demons that you find in the game. Next we have Mages, another RPG classic. Mages are similar to Warlocks in a lot of ways. They wear cloth, they use mana as their resource, and they can cast fire magic. But mages are also masters of the arcane, and they can attack with frost damage. As an added bonus, mages are the only class that can conjure cookies. Second to last, the Shaman. A shaman can use elemental magic, either to attack or to heal allies. Shamans can place 4 totems in combat to either enhance their own group, weaken the enemy group, or deal damage. They can attack either in melee or as ranged, and they can heal. But as always, you can only do one thing at a time. Shamans can also get a spirit wolf form, which, like the druid travel form, allows them to run faster. The last class is kind of a special case. This is a Death Knight. Death Knights were introduced with the 2nd expansion of the game, and they're the only class that start at level 55. The catch is, you have to have a level 60 or higher character on any realm before you can make one. So as a completely new player, you can't play it. But I'm going to show you what they do anyway. Death Knights are a plate-wearing class. They can tank or DPS, and they use runic power as a resource. It's like rage. It starts at 0 and builds up to 100. But in order for it to build up, you have to use your special abilities, like holy power for paladin, or combo points for a rogue. They also use runes, 6 of them, and they come with a cooldown, so you have to be careful what you spend your runes on in order to build runic power. Runic power is then used for the finishing moves, like a warrior or a rogue. So that's that. Assuming you're still awake, you can move on to the next part of the course. Bye!